be seated this morning. Happy Sunday to you. What a fun day, man. It is. Santa's here. It's pretty cool. They were in the back. It's kind of weird. You ever feel weird preaching to like royalty? It's weird when you got Mr. and Mrs. Claus sitting back there at the back table. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I don't know, man. I just hope I didn't ruin it for them. But no, they were here. That was pretty cool. They're still here, actually, so you don't have to worry about that. I got the train happening. I mean, we're just feeling festive. You know, this is good. This is good. Merry Christmas. We're pumped about this season. A couple things maybe before we get after it this morning I want to make you aware of. One, we have been raising money to build churches in Africa we started in the second week of October. And man, I am super thrilled. Like, we have raised enough money to build 7 churches in Africa. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So, in terms of math, I went to Bible college, but that's over $70,000, which is really incredible. We got one more week that we're doing that, so if you want to give towards that project, you can drop it in the offering or give online or whatever. But make sure you just designate it as such. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, we feel like God's called us to reach our neighbors, so we do things like Santa Claus and Christmas trains. But we also really feel like God has called us to reach the nations. And so this is a way that we're able to do that. And so thank you for your generosity in making that happen. We'll let you know the final count in 2 weeks, so we're pretty pumped about that going on. And then also next week is New Life Christmas, which is our New Life production, and so we're pretty pumped about that as well. It's always a lot of fun. It's always super powerful. It's a great just tradition and is a way to celebrate the season. And I say this for this service every year, and I say it in all 3, so I don't want to pick on anyone, okay? But like, this is one where you want to be here on time. It's the nervous laughter. Those are the people who are late. I know. I was out there in the lobby. I saw a lot of you pull in at 9:32. Okay, you know who you are. I'm just telling you, like, hey, you want to be here on time because it always starts with a bang, and it's not the same watching it online. Hey, online crowd. But it's not so. But you want to be in here for that. It's going to be real good. So it starts at 9:30. Okay, so get in here before that. But hey, we're looking at Christmas, and as I was thinking about Christmas this morning, I was thinking about how Christmas, the part of Christmas that's really fun is like the surprises that come with Christmas, right? Like you lead someone to think they're going to get this thing, and then you end up giving them this other thing that they were far more excited about. That's kind of fun, right? It's fun when you make your kids think that you're going to go somewhere really boring, right? And then they end up going somewhere that they've always wanted to go. Like, the surprising nature of Christmas is kind of fun. And so with that in mind, I went to New Life Community Life, and I said, hey, what would be some really like unexpected things that has happened to you or your family during the Christmas season? And we got tons of responding. There's like 35 people that commented on that post. Some of them were very heartwarming. That wasn't what we were looking for, but hey, go on there and read those. Those are really touching. We were looking for more ridiculous, and that's what we found. And these are a few of our favorite unexpected things that we saw happen to our New Life family on Christmas. The first one's from Tamar. She said this: when I was 6, 7, my mom made an entire glazed ham for Christmas. She had it sitting on the counter, and once it was time for dinner, we went to grab it. The pan was there, but the ham was gone. Turned out our dog had successfully stolen the ham without anyone noticing. That was a good Christmas for that dog. All right, next one is from Catherine. One year when my son was 3, all he wanted for Christmas was hot dogs and warm soda. That's a good Christmas. Why warm? I'm not sure, but he got it. I appreciate the mom in her that said, among other things. She's like, I want you to know I got him other things too, okay? But he was thrilled. What did he do with them? Like, I don't know. Like, I spent all day playing with hot dogs and warm stuff. Like, I don't know. All right. This one's from Chelsea Henry. When I was younger, I got in a huge fight with my older brother the night before Christmas. We were supposed to go on a Christmas vacation with our entire extended family. Everyone blamed me for the fight, and I was sent to bed early. I wished I could be alone for Christmas, and I woke up to an empty house. They had left for Paris without me, and I was home all by myself. Gosh, that sounds horrible. Sounds horrible, and that would never happen twice. All right, last one. One time in a whimsical conversation, my dad mentioned that he would love to try to raise llamas as a side income on our small hobby farm. That is a sentence I will never say. So my mom found a llama, full-grown female. I don't know why that's pertinent, but it is, to purchase. And we kids went to work arranging the great surprise. It was included one of us having the ever so brilliant idea of sneaking the llama into the house to really surprise him on Christmas morning. We got up early before Dad and pushed, pulled, and bribed and shoved that llama through the door. Needless to say, a surprise father is a world-class understatement. That llama hated our plan, spit and kicked at everything, as well as dropped a tremendous amount of llama pebbles all across the floor. Good times and Merry Christmas. That was unexpected. I think we could all agree. Okay, so we're gonna, as we look to our text this morning, we're gonna keep the theme of unexpected. Okay, so whenever you think of Christmas, you think of the Gospels. You think of all these stories that we've heard all these years. Maybe the book of Isaiah comes into play, and I thought, what if we did something a little unexpected this Christmas by looking at a Christmas story from a book that isn't often associated with Christmas. So if you got your Bible, you can go ahead and turn me to the book of Revelation. I'm not joking. Revelation chapter 12. Here we go. Merry Christmas. All right, Revelation 12, verse 1. It goes like this. This is not a joke, okay? Like sometimes I hold for a long. This is not. And a great sign appeared in heaven, and a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and crying out in birth pains and in the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads 7 diadems. And his tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her son, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. So Merry Christmas. Okay, a couple thoughts about the book of Revelation before and I'll explain some of the images, and then we'll see how this is absolutely a Christmas story. First, a couple thoughts on the Revelation. So one is worth noting that when we talk about the book of Revelation, it is called apocalyptic literature, okay, which is not something that we tend to read a lot of nowadays, but it is throughout the Bible. And so what is apocalyptic literature? So if Matt Chandler describes it in his Right Now Media study called The Overcomers, it's on the book of Revelation. It's actually really good. But he defines apocalyptic literature as writings that are intended to make you feel something. So even if you think about this text that we just looked at, there are elements of it that are written in a way so that when you read it, you feel something in your guts. Like that's part of what apocalyptic literature is trying to do. Even thinking beyond that, okay, you say the word apocalypse, right? It's often has bad connotations when you say the word apocalypse, right? Like if I were to say, Tuesday, we're looking for snow-pocalypse, the teachers and the children would be like, yay! Everyone else is thinking, oh gosh, I can't get groceries that day. We're out of bread already. And the thing is with apocalyptic literature, that's what we think when we think of it, but it's actually something that it isn't all negative. There are parts of apocalyptic literature that are actually incredibly positive. This story in particular, the one in Revelation 12 that I just read, that when and we'll see this in a moment, the first century church, when they would have read this text, they would have not been thinking of apocalypse in the sense that, oh, this is horrible. They would have thought of this text actually the exact opposite way in terms of, man, God is communicating something really powerful about what he does for us through this. It's through language that we're not used to. Even just thinking big picture of the book of Revelation, okay? Again, tricky book. But if you were to look at what is happening in the book of Revelation, it's peeling back the curtain to show us salvation history from a different angle. And that's why I think it's so important even to use this text this morning. Like, Christmas is one of the coolest things that has ever happened. And if we're not careful, we can take the coolest thing that ever happened, one of the coolest things that ever happened, and miss the power and beauty of it because it becomes so familiar. The beauty of what this text in Revelation does is it takes something that we're all familiar with and it looks at it from a different angle. And my hope would be that in looking at it from a different angle, maybe it would awaken something inside of our hearts so that we could see Christmas from a different light. And so let's look at a couple of the images that are here in the text, okay? Because part of Revelation is images, and it's really important not to look in terms of one-to-one. Some of these things, there's going to be disagreement, that you're going to find scholars that are going to believe one way. But though the one-to-ones are often disputed, there's general consensus around the principles, though. Okay, so let's look at the first image here. It's the woman. It says, "And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars." Okay, so this woman, you'd be like, okay, got it, that's Mary, right? Well, no, it's actually not. Okay, so what that is talking about is that is a picture more broad than Mary. That what it's looking at with this woman is it's a picture of the people whom Jesus came from and who Jesus came for. And you see that with the image of the sun, the moon, and the stars. Okay, so that if you're familiar with the Old Testament book of Genesis, there was a guy named Joseph, and it's at the end of the book. And he had this dream in the book of Genesis that the first century Jews reading the book of Revelation would have been very, very, very familiar with. And it was this dream where he ruled over his brothers and his father and his parents. And they were described as the moon, the sun, and the stars. And that image is an image that was representative of the nation of Israel. And so with this woman clothed in this way, what it's painting a picture of is it's painting a picture of not only the nation of Israel, but for us, who most of us are not Jewish, it's painting a picture of the church. That it's showing us that Jesus Christ, that he came from the true church for the true church. And the image of the sun, the moon, and the stars, it's a picture of what the church is supposed to be. That it's this royal image that is absolutely stunning. That people go to London and wait in line for hours to see the crown jewels. And this is saying that the true church of God, that as a crown, they have the stars. That it doesn't wear a robe, but it's clothed with the sun. And the moon is their footstool. That what it's painting a picture is it's painting a picture of what we are intended to be. And that as we go to heaven and we're with Jesus forever, part of what we're doing in those moments is that we are ruling and reigning with him. And so this image that's being portrayed here in the text is an image that's really beautiful for all of us to consider, saying this is our future. That God is going to clothe his church in incredible, incredible glory. And so then you have that image. The next image you see is one that is more horrifying, and you see that in verse 3, where it says, "And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. And he swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth." Now this is talking about the devil. It's talking about Satan. And it not only is it talking about Satan, but it's showing us what he does and what he's like. That everything here, it's intentional. So, okay, if you notice, it says that he's red. He's red. Now, it's not because it's not because John saw a picture of the little horned devil with a pitchfork that we think of when we come. No, the reason why that he says the devil is red is because he's a murderer. It's because what the devil does is when he comes into any circumstance, what he does is he brings death. That what the devil wants for you more than anything else is he wants to destroy you. He wants your soul. And what it shows us is somewhat of how he operates. Okay, because if you notice there that the number 7 is mentioned all over this. Now, biblical numerology, Merry Christmas, that oftentimes when you think of biblical numerology, the number 7, it's often associated with God. That you see that in the creation account, for instance, that in 7 days, God created the heavens and the earth. He rested on the 7th, but it was 7 days. That 7 is often associated with the number of God. And what this is saying is it's saying that Satan's a murderer, but he doesn't always show himself as a murderer. That sometimes what he'll do is he'll disguise himself as something else with the purpose of destroying your soul. That he's not coming at you guns blazing all the time, but sometimes what he does is he comes at you in a way that is far more subtle and frankly, far more dangerous, so we let our guard down and he's able to get us. So this is the picture that's being communicated. But before we get caught up in it and we're really afraid, I would mention the image that's at the end, where it says that he sweeps his tail and 1/3 of the stars fall from the sky. Now, there are 2 theories on what that could be talking about. One is that it's possible that it's referring to when Satan fell, and it's talking about the angels that came with him, or it's also talking about potentially the apocalypse when 1/3 of the stars fly. I don't think it actually matters. That what's being communicated here is that Satan's power is limited. When he didn't want to get 1/3 of the stars, he wanted to take them all, but he can only take 1/3. And what it's showing us is it's showing us that although he has power, and it's significant, real power, that it is restrained, and that he can't do whatever he wants. That there is a God in heaven, and the God in heaven doesn't just let him go and do whatever he wants. But that he has real power, but it still is limited. And then you see the last image, okay? And this is why when it's talking about the woman, it's not talking about Mary, but it's talking about the church, because it shows what happens to the church as they endure Satan's attacks. You see it in verse 6, where it says, the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. So in the midst of the enemy and all of his attacks, it's showing us that the people of God, that they're taken care of by God. That when the enemy attacks you, you aren't on your own, but that there is a God in heaven who will care for your soul. That number 1260, that most of what I heard about it is that it's not literal, but what it's showing us is it's showing us 2 things. One is that the enemy can attack for a long time, basically 4 years. It's a long time. But it also shows us that there's an end to it, and there will come a day where his attacks are over. But in the meantime, what we can do is we can run to God, and he will take care of our souls. So, Christmas. This absolutely communicates Christmas. That what it does is it's showing us elements of the Christmas story from an angle that we don't normally look at, but they're absolutely there in Revelation 12. And I would go as far as say they are, not only are they there, but they're there in a way that is kind of unexpected. And I want to look at a few of those this morning. The first one is this. The first thing we see about the Christmas story is we see the tension of the person of Jesus. And we see that it's communicated here in a way that's unexpected. The tension of the person of Jesus. Okay, that when you look at Jesus, there is a tension to his personhood that is very difficult to understand. And it's that on the one hand, he is fully man. That on the other hand, he is fully God, and he is fully both, and we don't clearly know how that works in all its facets. But it's absolutely there in Christmas. That even if you were to think about how Matthew talks about Jesus at his birth, you see this divine and human elements clearly on display in Matthew chapter 1, where it says this. It says, "Behold, the virgin will conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel," which means God with us. That you see that he was born, which is a very human thing. But though he was born, which was a very human thing, he was also God. I mean, and that's here in Revelation. I mean, Jesus' birth in Revelation is described in graphic detail of birth. It talks about the pain and the agony that the mother endures giving birth to a child, which, man, that is a picture of how we were born. And what it's showing us is it's showing us that God's Son was born in the exact same way that you and I were. But though he was, there's also the picture of divinity that you see in verse 5 when it says this. It says, "She gave birth to a male child who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and his throne." Certainly elements of divinity. Who has ever ruled all the nations before? No one. But that's what's going to happen at the end. That Jesus will return, and when Jesus returns, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess that he is Lord. Somehow we will all see him at the same time, and he will rule everyone, all the nations. It's pointing to his divinity. Beyond that, it's also pointing to his rule, that it says that the child is seated with God on his throne, which is exactly what Jesus is doing right now. That right now, Jesus is with God on the throne, ruling and reigning. And so you see this tension in his personality. And that tension that is there is so beautiful for us. I mean, think of it this way. When you think of, like, if you are something, you're able to relate better to people who are like you. I mean, back in the day when I used to wait tables. And I can tell you this, that because of my experience waiting tables back in the day, that if I go to a restaurant and it takes the waiter or waitress a long time to get to me, I'm going to be far more gracious because I know what it feels like. I know what it's like to have 20 people sat in your section, food in the window, and someone asking for a check. And so if I'm sitting, it's easier for me to be gracious. Why? Because I understand it. Like, I get it. Jesus was fully human, meaning that the parts of being human, he understands. He fully gets it. Not only does he fully get it, he's able to relate to them. Jesus knows, he knows what it's like to be betrayed by someone. That Jesus, he didn't have a perfect family. That literally, while he was doing ministry, his family showed up at the place where he was doing ministry, and they tried to take him away because they said that he was crazy. Like, he gets it. That Jesus knows what it's like to be sick. That Jesus knows what it's like to have friends who are sick. Jesus knows what it's like to have a day where you have everything lined out according to plan and nothing goes according to plan. Like, he gets it. He was fully human just as we are. It also works in our struggle with sin. He understands temptation in a way that honestly is greater than how we understand temptation. And the reason why he's able to understand it greater is because he was tempted and he never gave into it. C.S. Lewis says it this way in his book, Mere Christianity. He says, it's a silly idea that good people do not know what temptation means. This is an obvious lie. Only those who try to resist temptation know how strong it is. A man who gives into temptation after 5 minutes simply does not know what it would have been like an hour later. Christ, because he was the only man who never yielded to temptation, is also the only man who knows to the full what temptation means. That he understands. That means, okay, if he's at the throne, like that means that when you talk to Jesus and you tell him what you're going through, he's not going to be like, that's not a big deal. He knows. He's been there. But here's the beauty and the tension. He's also fully God. Meaning that he's able to do something about it that humans can't do. He defeated sin and death, that we're able to look to him and he's able to bring answers that we can't. I'm sure that you've all been there, okay? Or maybe you had someone in your life who was going through something difficult. And you sat with them. You prayed for them. You checked on them. But even after you did all that, you just felt inadequate because there was more to do. It's because you're human. That there's only so much that you can do. But Jesus is both fully human and fully God, and so you see the tension of that here in the text. The other thing that you see is this, is you see the unexpected nature of Jesus' rule. That Jesus, he's the king of the world, but it's in the most unexpected way. I mean, like, when someone becomes king, they put on the crown, they make the decisions. They're king. But that's not how it worked with Jesus. He's born into this world in a manger, lives a life in relative obscurity except for the last 3 years, and then he dies on the cross, and right now he's at the throne of God ruling. But it's not how we would always think of ruling. I mean, think of it here. You see it here in the text in Revelation where it says that she gave birth to a male child who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, but her child was caught up to God and his throne. That there's this he's already ruling. He's already on the throne, but there are still moments where it feels like maybe he's not. We probably all have moments even this past year and this season where we wondered, like, what is God doing? We look at things in the world and we're like, man, is he really like ruling and reigning? And there is this thing that's happening that is both already and at the same time it's not yet. And so what do we do when we find ourselves in that tension is we let him rule the thing that we can let him rule, which is our hearts. That maybe not everybody in this world will see him as the king, but here's the deal. In your heart, you can see him as the king. That in your heart, you can like people watching you, observing, can see that no, Jesus he has authority over their lives. But it happens through how we wait. It talks about this in Hebrews chapter 9, and I like the way that it says it. It says it this way. It says, so Christ, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are eagerly waiting for him. So how do you handle this already not yet of his ruling? You wait for him. And here's the deal. If you're waiting for someone to come, like you do certain things. If someone tells you they're going to come over to your house, you're waiting for them to come. You're probably making sure that you're there, right? Like there are certain things that you do when you're waiting for someone. And if you are waiting for Jesus to return, well, then your life looks like you're waiting for Jesus to return. I know this is cliche, but it's absolutely true. I think we can all agree there are things that we would like to be doing when Jesus returns, right? Like, wouldn't it be cool if you're praying, and as you're praying, eyes closed, Jesus comes, you open your eyes and he's right. Like, that would be pretty cool. Like, I was waiting for you. Like, that would feel kind of nice. You're sitting there in worship, hands raised, like, and then it gets kind of quiet, and you're like, what's going on? And then you open your eyes, oh my gosh, he's right there. Like, that'd be kind of neat. I think it'd be pretty fun if you were getting baptized, come out of the water, and it's like, whoa, there's Jesus. Like, that would be pretty cool. But there also be things that you probably wouldn't want to be doing when Jesus comes back, right? And we don't need to go through that list, do we? But there's a way to wait. And you wait in a way that believes that he's ruling. The last thing you see is this, is you see the victory of Jesus was unexpected. And that's probably the big idea of the Christmas story in the book of Revelation. It's that you see that when Jesus was born, he walked right into a fight. That it wasn't just this quaint story of him going into a manger and all the wise men, but that really, as he came into this world, he walked straight into a fight. I mean, look at what it says. It says, the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. That from the second Jesus was born, the enemy's thinking, how do I destroy him? And if you just think big picture gospel narrative, the Gospels are a story of the enemy trying to destroy Jesus. He's born in a manger, not in a palace. That when he is born, the most powerful person in the world says, I'm going to kill every baby 2 years old or younger that was born in that region. That Jesus begins his ministry. How does his ministry start? Is that he's led alone in the wilderness to be tempted by Satan. And how does it end? It ends with him on a cross. That from the very beginning, the enemy is looking for an opportunity to devour him. And even if you just think of it in terms, I think that's part of what the image in Revelation is trying to conjure up. It's that, man, that victory is unexpected. Gosh, if we were to put a baby and a 7-headed dragon in a ring and do a WWE style match, no one's picking the baby. I mean, even just think about maybe you have a baby or you've had a baby and you bring them over to someone's house that has a trained animal at their house, and you are so afraid of that child playing with that animal because you're afraid it's going to be too rough. Here you have a baby squaring off with a dragon. And the baby is victorious. Like, and here's the thing, when you think about a fight, when you think about a battle, you want to be on the right side. Being on the wrong side can be very devastating. My son and I, we've been to the last 3 Nebraska-Iowa football games. They lost every single one of them. Every single one. 2 years ago, we came to that game full of hope. And we looked really good. And then in the last second, we lost on a field goal, okay? It was in Iowa where they were home. We were the visitors. And we had to walk 1 mile back to our car with all these drunk, happy Iowa fans who were like patronizing us, telling us good game. And it's like, no, it wasn't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, no, good for you, okay? And here's the thing about like Nebraska football that's very frustrating is that they win every offseason. They do this thing, okay? And this is going to happen again in January, is they're going to hit the transfer portal super hard. They're going to fire some coaches, hire some new coaches. And what's going to happen is that by the end of spring, every Nebraska fan is going to think that they're going to be really good at football. Even this year, they were a dark horse playoff contender, and I can tell you this, they weren't even close at all. And it's just like, it's this idea where it's like, hey, trust us, this year's gonna be different, and it never is. And that's exactly what the devil does, except for with far more on the line. What the devil does is he says, hey, trust me, this time it's gonna be different. Hey, you don't think I can take that baby? It's just one time. And what it's trying to convince you is to put your trust in something that is ultimately going to lose. But here's the beauty of the gospel, is that, yeah, it seems like it was an incredible disadvantage that this baby in the ring with the dragon. And it was. But the disadvantage was for the dragon. Kevin DeYoung says it this way. He says it like this. It didn't look like a fair fight, and it wasn't, because Jesus had every advantage. John says it this way in his letter. He says, the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the works of the devil. Where the devil thought he had every advantage, God's Son was going to win the entire time, and frankly, it wasn't even close. But the question for us from this text is, what side are you going to be on? What are you going to choose to believe? Let's pray. God, we love you. We thank you for who you are. I thank you, God, for your grace that you show us. I'm thankful, God, that the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. That he was sitting there waiting, and he was waiting for his own demise. That, God, that you are so much stronger. You are so much more powerful. That you win the ultimate battle. And God, I pray this morning, maybe there are people here in this room, the reality of their circumstances such that maybe they've been on the other side. They don't have a relationship with you. Maybe they did it one time, but they've walked away from that. Maybe they've never had one. I don't know. You know their story, but you've brought them here. And God, I pray that in this moment, that faith in God's Son would awaken in their hearts. Jesus, that you came to destroy the work of the devil. And I pray that if that's people's feeling, that you would do something inside of them that would cause them to yield to you and put their trust in you, God. I pray that you would help all of us to realize, as we think about this text, as we think about this Christmas, Jesus, that you are victorious. And that you didn't just walk into some manger for some quaint story for us to warm our hearts, but that, God, you walked out of heaven for a battle for our souls. And God, we love you and we thank you for that. God, it's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Love you guys.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us online today. We hope that this service was everything that you needed it to be. And if you would like to find out more about what's going on at New Life Church, check us out online at nlspringfield.com. From there, you can find out more about our staff. You can see upcoming events. And if you would like to give to New Life Church, you can go to giving.nlspringfield.com. Have a great week, everybody.